Well, I've been really excited to show this Bible and do a review of it. This is the New American Standard Bible, but as you can see here on the box, it is the 2020 edition. So this is the newest update of the New American Standard Bible, just was released, and it is a large print Ultrathin reference Bible. This is in the gray Leathertex, and that is what they call their synthetic leather cover, Leathertex. They do have a genuine leather cover option, but what's great is they have various colors that you can choose from, and so there's a good variety of covers available. And they, on the back here, have information about this. If you'd like to pause the video and read that in detail, feel free to do that. This gives you some of the features here. The ISBN number. I believe this retails for about $35, but you can get it on the Lockman website for only about $25 for the Leathertex edition. What I would generally say about this Bible is that it really has certain similarities in its make to the previous editions of the NASB, but they've updated some things too. So in terms of similarities, you see that with the Leathertex, you get this little slipcase here. That's how they did it in the past as well with their Leathertex edition. This is actually a side column reference Bible, but black Leathertex, and you've got this little slipcase. You know, just kind of a similar thing here. They've just updated the look of it, but really a lot of similarities in how they did that. So the presentation is somewhat similar. Another similarity, if I show you a Leathertex Bible from the previous edition, is that their Leathertex is unique. You know, every company has kind of their own way, but it's kind of unique. Now, I will say this new one is really unique. It has kind of a grain pattern to it, and you can see that here, kind of darker streaks vertically on the pattern there, and then it does have a texture to it as well. Now, one difference is that on the side here, at least with the edition I have, they actually have that stamped in on the side there, whereas on the left here, this is stamped, but they do have the gold here. So it depends on what edition you get. I think with the genuine leather, they do have the gold stamping. But for this one, it's just stamped in with that etching there, and I think that looks really good. Another similarity with these two Bibles when you get into them is that they both have kind of a vinyl paste down liner to them. And that's actually really good, because with a lot of synthetic leather covers, you'll just get a paper paste down liner. And this vinyl in both of these is really, really pretty nice, pretty durable, which is a good thing. Also, they both have cardstock at the beginning of the Bible. You get some cardstock pages at the beginning, and also at the end of the Bible there is again that vinyl paste down, but also some cardstock pages at the end. So what I find overall with these Lockman Bibles is they just have a real solid feel to them. That was true of the 95 edition, and I would say it's true of the 2020 edition. It really impressed me just what a solid feel you have with both of these Bibles. You're not even paying much for this, $25. It's Smyth sewn, so the pages are really going to hold up, I think. Really good binding there. Gray head and tail band on this Bible, 2 ribbons. Another thing that's very Lockman-ish about this Bible are the ribbons. Now, this does have 2 ribbons, which I think is an improvement. They're a little wider than the previous edition I have here. But what I would say is similar about them is they're very thin. Now, I'm not talking about the width, but I'm talking about just the feel of them is a very thin feel. And so the ribbons feel a little bit more cheaply made. That being said, they look pretty good. They have a good color scheme in this edition, and to me, they certainly suffice. I don't think ribbons, in my opinion, are the most important thing in a Bible. If I was going to cut corners in any place, I think ribbons might be the place I'd be willing to cut corners to save on costs. So I don't mind that. However, some people that might be something they want to replace, put newer ribbons, nice ribbons in here. But that is something that I see in Lockman Bibles is, the ribbons aren't necessarily the nicest. Now I have here a 95 edition of the large print Ultrathin, so you can see the inside of the older edition versus this new edition. And this is where you see more of the differences. Now the paper, I would say, is probably pretty similar, but the formatting is quite a bit different here. They both are large print, they're both ultra thin, and they're actually really similar in size. But on the left here, the older one, you can see that the print is not actually line matched. So the ghosting is more noticeable. It's not too bad on the ultra thin that I have, but it is noticeable to some degree. With this newer edition, they've line matched it, and so that's good. It is a really bold print. It's also a bit bigger. What's interesting is that even though it's a larger print, these Bibles are really similar in terms of their thickness. And I think that's because this older one here is a verse-by-verse format, and the newer one is in paragraph format. And by putting it in paragraph format, they were actually able to save space because verse-by-verse does take up more space. Now, that might be a complaint to some people. They like the verse-by-verse format, but let me show you something here. I think you can see it already. These verses are the boldest verse numbers I've ever seen in a Bible, and I think if you really do like verse by verse, I understand. I like it too to some degree, but if you're gonna have paragraph format and still want to have that ability to see the verses easily, this Bible has done a great job with that. So I really like that. It has been modernized, the font, the formatting here. One of the things, aside from the line matching, that is really nice is that the column here has the cross references, which you see also in the older edition. But they separated these out so that the ones on the top go with the column on the left, the cross references on the bottom go with the column on the right. So that's a nice feature. Before, they were all kind of just bunched together. The only thing they did before was they put a line separating the chapters that the cross references are referring to. So I think this is more organized, easier to see. But the big thing is that they took the translator notes out of the center column and they put them on the bottom of the page here. So that really, I think, is an improvement. Now with the older edition, they justified both sides of the text in the prose section, and in the poetry here you can see that they had poetic settings. With the new one, they justify the text on the left side, but then they keep the right side non-justified. What's nice about that actually is you see the spacing in some places here gets really far apart. With this way of setting it up, you have really consistent word spacing, which is actually really nice. And in the poetry, you still have poetic settings. So I actually think this new formatting is great. And the big thing I have to say about it that is so nice is that it really is a large, bold print. This is so easy to read, I have to tell you. When you get into the New Testament here, of course you have, it looks really like a 2K Denmark design, and that is what it is. So in the New Testament here, the book of Matthew, you'll see it is not a red letter text for the words of Christ. That's also true in the older edition that I have. So black letter text. And for teaching being under various kinds of lighting, it's actually kind of nice to have consistent black text. So in many ways, I think that's a good thing. Let's compare the front of these two Bibles, and you'll see that, again, they have cardstock in both of them, although I think there's more cardstock here in this older edition. But they have a lot of the same presentation pages, just the design of it has changed. The older one, I think, looks more elaborate. This is a little bit more straightforward. You just have the text there and the lines, no ornate designs to it. So I think that's just going to be a preference thing. Some people might like the simplicity of this. I will say, the ornate stuff looks nice, but it can be kind of depending on people's taste, and it can also kind of look outdated at times to people. I always felt like this graphic here on the front looks to me outdated. So in some ways, I just like this simplified look because it's going to be a little bit more timeless and not go out of style. And then we have the title pages here and copyright information. So the older one that I have is a 2018 printing, and it looks like it's the 7th printing. The newer one that I have is a 2020, and it is the first printing. They are both printed in China, but as you can see, this new one has a typesetting by 2K Denmark, which is a really good thing. Their typeset is always really well designed. This shows you the contents of the Bible. As we get into the foreword to the New American Standard, it has a lot of similarities with the previous foreword in other editions. However, they did change some things and they added certain sections. And you can see here under Principles of Translation, they have this section here on gender accuracy. It says, in past editions, it was common practice to translate the Greek word anthropoi as men, and the Hebrew Adam when used as a plural as men, as well as all pluralistic uses of ish and similar words. The same was true for singulars as masculine. This was never intended to be gender exclusive when the context indicated that women were included. It was assumed at that time that readers inferred the inclusion of women. Gender accuracy is important, however, so in this edition, Greek and Hebrew words that are not actually exclusive in gender as they are used in a given context are rendered by inclusive terms such as people. Just as important, when the words in the original languages are in fact referring only to males or females, the distinction is maintained in English. So what they're saying is in this new updated edition, they translated it according to context. Another difference is with the word brethren, where they have, instead of using that more old term brethren, they've changed that to the word brothers. And again, depending on the context, sometimes they actually have brothers and sisters if it's referring to men and women, but they do put and sisters in italics because the word itself is a masculine word. And then another change they've made here is using let's for action, which is interesting. If you want to pause and read that, feel free to do that. But instead of using let us, in certain places, they've just changed that to the word let's. So that gives you a taste of some of the changes. There's other changes as well that are in here, but those are the big ones, I would say. And honestly, people feel sometimes like it's a big thing, but the 1977 NASB made some big changes too, because changing these and thous, referring to God in prayer, to you and yours, is actually a big change for the time. Because thee and thou is considered a term of reverence, I think. So that was a big change. And so these changes are just, they seem big to us, but that's, how things are when your language changes, when the context of English changes. That's why they make changes to these editions. So this is one of the changes that they were talking about in Matthew 26:46. It says, "Get up, let's go. Behold, the one who is betraying me is near." And that's just trying to put things more in the way that we would say them today. Another change that I'm going to show you here is in Luke chapter 17. This is just give you a taste of how they tried to make this more readable. In Luke 17:20, it says, "Now having been questioned by the Pharisees," and that is the 95 edition. In this one here, the 2020, it says, "Now he was questioned by the Pharisees." So that just reads a little bit more the way we would put things now. I'll show you another change they made here for readability. It says in John 9:18, "The Jews did not believe it of him that he had been blind and had received sight." In the newer edition, it says, "The Jews then did not believe it about him that he had been blind and had received sight." So that's a little bit different. Instead of saying did not believe it of him, believe it about him is again more the way that we would actually put things in English. Also in the next sentence, they added the word they questioned him, and that just makes the sentence a little bit clearer who that's referring to. So they made little changes like that in the text as well as the other ones that I showed. So that is what the NASB 2020 update is like. I might do a video talking about it more if there's a lot of interest, but I wanted to give you a taste of it here in this review. Overall, it's very much like the previous editions of the New American Standard Bible. I will show you here where they add the term sisters in certain contexts. It says to the saints and faithful brothers and sisters. And so before they didn't have sisters there, but they just added that in italics because that is an implied meaning of the word that Paul is using there. When you get to the end of this Bible, instead of having the typical concordance that they used to have, they have this topical index of the Old and New Testament. And so it has similarities with a concordance, maybe not as many entries, but the entries that they do have, they sometimes give some information and then also give different subjects and references to those subjects. So that's nice. Quite a few entries here, actually. It's pretty extensive. I do like that the text in this index is still very readable. They didn't make it too small or hard to read. Some of the previous editions had these introductions to the books of the Bible. This is a nice feature. So at the end here, after the index, you can read introductions to all the books of the Bible. They are similar, if not the exact same ones from the previous editions. Another new feature, I would say, is this chart here. It has parables of Jesus and all of the passages where those are found, the miracles of Jesus, the important events in Christ's life according to the Gospels. So harmony of the Gospels there. Really nice, and I'm not aware of other Lockman Bibles that have this. Maybe they did. Some of you can say that in the comments if they did. But that, to me, looks like a newer feature. But these are the same maps that you've seen in other Lockman Bibles. And personally, I really like these. I think they're very easy to read, very simple, but with a lot of really good information. I love this map of the ministry of Jesus. And that's how the Bible ends. So what are my overall impressions of this Bible? Personally, I think it's, for its price, is really well made. It's very readable. And I think that the update of the NASB is a really good update, in my opinion, for people today. I know a lot of people are going to stick with the NASB 95, but I think for people that are new to the NASB, I think that this will actually be more readable for them, just smoothed out a little bit. And it's still a scholarly translation with really good notes. These footnotes down here are really good. It wouldn't be my first translation for public use, for me personally, but for study purposes, I really like the NASB. So I think this NASB 2020 is a great complement to something like the CSB or the ESV or even the NKJV. It's just a really good word-for-word complementary translation to some of the other ones that are out there. And I think this edition here, like I said, it is the same size pretty much as what you had in the older editions. It is a little bit thicker than the Zondervan that I have. The Zondervan NASB is really thin, but it doesn't have, the one that I have doesn't have cross references. And I think the footnotes, the translator notes, are a condensed set. So if you want something even thinner, Zondervan has a really good option, but this Lockman here is, in my opinion, really well done. So that was a pretty thorough look and some of my impressions of the New American Standard Bible Large Print Ultrathin Reference Bible. Thank you so much for taking a look at this Bible with me from A Frisch Perspective.